Well, it has not been even quite 48 hours since Nick Saban officially retired as Alabama's head coach. And now it appears that Alabama has their next man in Washington's Kalen DeBoer. Now, Greg Byrne is still, at the time of recording this, has not made an official announcement yet. DeBoer is supposed to be meeting with his team at Washington in a couple minutes to tell them, to break the news to them. But Blake, what are your reactions to this hiring of Kalen DeBoer to Alabama?
I mean, I think it's hard not to be excited about this hire if you're an Alabama fan. I mean, if you look at DeBoer's track record, he's won everywhere he's been. He has a 104-12 record as a head coach, and then you look at his previous stop at Washington. It was his first time in a Power Five job. He took over a team that was 4-8, and in 2 years got that team to the national championship game, playing against teams that he probably has lesser talent than. When you look at teams like Oregon, who he beat twice this year, and then Texas in the college football playoff semifinal game in the Sugar Bowl, he's just won. He's a winner. Everywhere he's been, he's won games. And I know that Alabama fans may have some concerns potentially about recruiting. His current recruiting class, I think, is in the 30s for Washington. So that is a reasonable point of concern, as we haven't seen him maybe bring in a top tier recruiting class that maybe you would like as a coach coming to Alabama. But at the same time, he's going to have plenty of resources at his disposal at Alabama that's going to help him. He's also still going to have Nick Saban, who's still
Right.
going to be around the program and is someone that can help him on that front. I think one thing that's really important looking forward is seeing who he retains from this Alabama staff. I think there are some guys that are going to be very important that he's going to want to keep when it comes to keeping players that are currently on the team from leaving in the transfer portal, and also keeping those relationships with recruits that he has. But I think as he kind of forms this staff, he's going to be able to find guys that are going to be able to recruit. Because, I mean, bottom line is Alabama, regardless of who's at the helm, is still going to sell itself as one of the biggest brands in college football. And so as he continues to build that, he's done great everywhere he's been. And just the way that he's been able to win football games as a whole, regardless of who has been on his team, he's been able to maximize the talent that he has had to work with. And I think because of that, there's no reason to not be incredibly excited about this hire and about the future of Alabama football, even without Nick Saban.
Yeah, I think obviously the biggest concern is his lack of ties to the South and recruiting. But at the end of the day, you think, who would you want running this program? And you look at a guy that was in the national championship this past year. There's only two coaches that were him and Jim Harbaugh. And Jim Harbaugh is more than likely headed off to the NFL and, probably wouldn't have come here anyway. And I don't think Alabama would have wanted him with all the scandal he's been involved in. And so
Mhm.
DeBoer's a guy, like you said, who's had success everywhere he's gone. He's won championships. Now, it was at a much lower level, but like you said, in year two at Washington, he got his team to the championship level.
Mhm.
And college basketball and college football are different, but a lot of people, including yourself, have brought up the similarity of this hire and the Nate Oates hire, and that Nate Oates was a
Mhm.
guy that didn't have a lot of proven success at big schools. Um, as a head coach, he'd only been a head coach, I think, for 4 years at Buffalo, but he was a
Right.
winner in what he had done, and that's the same thing with and Nate Oates didn't have ties to the South, and that's the same thing with Kalen DeBoer. He's a winner. Nate Oates brought in good recruiters. He's a good recruiter himself, even though he didn't have ties in the South. They've been able to recruit the South well. And then he was still able to recruit the areas he was familiar with up in Canada and New York and stuff like that. And it could be the same thing for DeBoer, is that he's going to have people on his staff that are familiar with the South, but also may be able to go get some of those West Coast guys too. And so my initial reaction is, Greg Byrne wanted a winner. He wanted somebody that was a good recruiter. He said that in his statement about what he was looking for. So he must be confident enough in DeBoer's recruiting abilities. And overall, I've seen and heard only positive things about DeBoer. Obviously,
Yep.
heading into this to the championship week last week, I didn't know a lot about him. But since he's kind of been in the mix and since the hiring was announced from people that have covered that program more closely, I've only heard good things. And so I think this is a hire that Alabama fans should be excited about.